Of course, that's why they're last minute people. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of entertainment today. I did not bring any songs because I can't sing, and instead I brought Mr. Marc Willson, which we'll be hearing from shortly.
Awesome, and I won't be singing either.
Yeah, right. If you guys are ready, I'm Brett Augustine, Recovery Business Advisor for North Central Texas Small Business Development Center, which is the leading provider for assistance for small businesses. We are grant funded, and that allows us to offer services like this very seminar at no cost to you, for those of you that will take the benefit from it. And the fulfillment today is what we're talking about, Fulfillment 2021, presented by Marc Willson. And just a couple notes before I pass it over to Marc. We're going to please leave your questions in the chat window, and we'll get to those at the end. That way we can allow Marc to go ahead and get through his presentation, and at the end we'll take everybody's questions. Just feel free to keep that chat window full of anything that comes up along the way, and we'll go over them towards the end. And with that said, I'd like to introduce Mr. Marc Willson.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Marc Willson. I have the Willson Company. I'm a retail restaurant hospitality strategist. You might ask yourself, what the heck is that? And I'll spend just a couple minutes here telling you a little bit about me. I spent 4 decades in the retail restaurant and hospitality business, running stores, restaurants, hotels, and things of that ilk. And gosh, I wore the shoes with you. I've worn them for you. I've made the mistakes for you. And I'm here to tell you this afternoon, if you're not making mistakes right now, you're not taking enough risks, because this buzzword and this notion of pivot means you've got to try new things over this past 2020 and into 2021. I hope you did. And if you're still here and listening to me right now, you probably have done a nice job of pivoting during what has been the most unusual year and a half for anybody in retail restaurants or hospitality. So I'm been a consultant with the SBDCs across the country since 2009. So I've been doing this for about 12 years. Up until we went virtual, I traveled the country almost every week. And for my career, I traveled most of the time anyway, so I'm used to it. It's certainly become a little more arduous to travel these days, but look how beautiful virtual has done for the scalability of so many businesses, and the ability for us to still service our clients out of practically almost everybody out of their homes. So you're going to see business models change dramatically based on what we've experienced for the last 16 months. And we see what works, and what's still very efficient, gets the job done, but doesn't take the same time or money. And of course, most businesses are always looking at time and money. So it's the right thing to do. So anyway, by education, I'm a botanist, believe it or not. And I was working for a place called Longwood Gardens when I graduated from college. By the way, put that on your bucket list, jot that down, Longwood Gardens. It's one of the finest horticultural places in the world, and it's in Kennett Square, PA. So if you ever get to Philly, take the time to go out to Longwood Gardens. It was a DuPont estate. This guy loved plants and flew them in from all over the world. It's become quite a place. In fact, I'm an ordained minister, and I know a little bit about the Garden of Eden, and I was working in the Garden of Eden. So I was happy as a lark. And my brother calls me, who lives in DC, was getting his graduate degree in George Washington, and he started working part-time at a shoe store in Georgetown. And Georgetown's a posh suburb, bars, restaurants, and stores in the corner of DC. And it was a shoe store, and he calls me and he says, this guy is making more money he knows what to do with. How would you like to move to DC and help us grow this business? We're going to open a bunch of them. So I had been in Delaware my whole education. I'm a Texan by birth, but moved to Delaware because my dad was with DuPont, and DuPont is based in Delaware. So I grew up in Delaware. Anyways, I moved to DC, and for those that are old enough, you'll remember this store. For those that are young, you won't. It was an Earth shoe store. Who remembers the shoes that were developed by a Danish woman who develops this shoe that was good for your feet? This was mid 70s now, so bear with me. Yule Gibbons was eating berries. So the Earth shoe was a negative heel shoe. The shoe heel was lower than the front, and the toe box was wide because your toes are supposed to spread out when you walk when you're barefooted, and you support the weight with your heel of your body, not the ball of your foot. So she develops this shoe in Denmark, and it becomes a phenomenon. And we opened dozens of stores across the U.S. in AA malls and became rich young men. We made a lot of money. So that's the good part of the story. Now let me tell you what mistakes we made. So in my naivete, I didn't know anything about kick-out clauses. So I signed dozens of leases that were 10 years long in AA malls. And AA malls are North Park Center and Houston Galleria and places like that. So top shopping centers. 2 years into the process, and we had opened dozens of stores, the parent company in Denmark goes belly up. They mismanaged the money. Here I am with dozens of leases with 8 years left on all of them. No kick-out clause. So here's my first pearl of wisdom. First reason you came to this seminar. Always look for a kick-out clause in your lease. And if there isn't one, negotiate one, because they're very common now. And basically a kick-out clause says, if you're not doing what you thought you would do, and it's roughly 2 years, because it takes 2 years for you to start making money anyway, for the most part, you can get out of the lease. The landlord has the same right. If you're not what they expected, they can ask you to leave in 2 years. But far better that than buying your way out of dozens of leases with 8 years left on them. We lost everything. So I went from a wealthy young 22-year-old to a broke one because we spent all the money buying our way out of those leases. So always negotiate a kick-out clause. They're very common today. I then went with a clothier that had 5 stores independently owned. I left them 12 years later with 105. I opened 8 of them in Dallas. It was called Britches of Georgetown and Britches Great Outdoors. I'm sure some of you have run into them somewhere. We were pretty much all over the East Coast and Midwest. But anyways, that story ended a little better. In 1990, we sold it for $50 million. Here's my next word to the wise. Have any of you seen the movie The Founder? It's a top 10 movie for entrepreneurs. It's the Ray Kroc story. It's the McDonald's hamburger story. And here's what I learned from that movie. A young lawyer says to Ray Kroc, Ray, do you want to be wealthy? And Ray says, sure I do. And he says, here's what you need to do. You need to own the land under every franchisee's store. You need to be in the real estate business. And that's how Ray Kroc became a billionaire. When we sold Britches for 90 million, it got sold for our real estate, not our business. They closed our business. But we had some main on main, top 50-yard line real estate that they wanted. So they bought us for our real estate. So in other words, wise. Why give a landlord rent if you have the wherewithal to own your building? Because it's an asset. And eventually you need an asset that makes you money while you're sleeping. That's Warren Buffett's favorite thing. You got to be making money while you're sleeping, or you're going to be working until you're 65 and retire with a pension. So that's my little backstory. I've done a lot of internet stuff. I've owned a bunch of stores myself. So I've touched about what you can cut into touch in retail, restaurants, and hospitality. So that's me, and I'm sticking to that story, and we're going to move ahead now that you know a little bit about me. So I am ready to share my screen, which I will do now. Can everybody see this? Is it in presentation mode?
It absolutely is. Perfect.
Excellent. What's wrong with that title slide? It's missing an L in fulfillment. And I did that because I had two L's in my name, and everybody's always missing an L when it comes to me. And people ask me why there's two L's, because I'm a twin. So we had to have two L's, and no one could knock the L out of us. Anyways, just trying to keep you entertained. In case you want to see what I look like when I get dressed up, that's me. And I was in the clothing business for 12 years, and I can get dressed up and look legitimate, and I am legit, and I'm here to help you. So what, you might say, well, you might have, whatever, 40 years of experience in retail, but no one has experienced what we've experienced in the last 16 months. And I'm like, okay, I'm with you. So here's the deal. I might be old, but I spend all my time making sure I am completely current with the information that I share with you. And I pride myself in teaching you things you can use to improve your business. And hopefully I do that well this afternoon. So what has happened? Well, a pandemic showed up in March of 2020, and we've been reeling ever since. And no one expected it to be quite what it turned out to be, I don't think. We were ill prepared, even though Obama says he talked about a pandemic, 8 years ago. Simply, we were not prepared, and we got slammed, and we're still getting slammed. The good news today, though, folks, is that we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. There is a new breed of optimism throughout the country. Optimism, what the hey? Texas has rescinded the mass protocol and we're 100% open. And there's two other states that have followed, and I don't think we're that far behind. When these masks come off outside for the whole country, you're going to see folks moving toward normalcy, and you're going to just see folks being out and shopping again. And that's a good thing. I mean, there's nothing better than them buying the product from inside your store. I mean, that's what we're all about. That's what we were bred on. We are bricks and mortar people. We are physical plant people. I spent 10 years telling you, don't worry about e-commerce. I said, make sure you have a great website, but it's for marketing. It's so that you get found. My battle cry for 11 years has been get found and be open. And you got to have a good website to get found. Why? Because you have to be on the first page of Google results, because Americans don't go past those first pages, because they expect you, if you're decent, that you've earned your way to that first page or bought your way to that first page. But I tell people not to use the one shaded in blue, because they bought their way to that top of the page. Take the first free result, because that retailer, restaurant, or whoever earned their way to that spot. So I want you on the first page, and I'll tell you at some point this morning how to get there without spending any money. How would you like that? Don't let me forget to tell you that. But anyway, so now we're telling you, no, it's not just for marketing. You've got to be able to sell your product online, because everybody was saying this past holidays, walk-in's going to be down by 50%. Walk-in traffic is going down by 50%. And e-commerce will go up by 70%. So you should be able to offset the downturn and walk-in traffic with e-commerce. Now, I don't think that applies to independently owned mom and pop retailers in small towns throughout the country. You're not going to be 70% e-commerce unless you go full scale e-commerce. I think if we get a small independent retailer up to 20%, it's probably 4 times more than they do now. The average retailer that's not full e-commerce maybe does 5% online, maybe 2%. But you'll see it growing because guess what? People discovered how to shop online that never shopped online. Guess how many people globally started shopping online for the first time over the holidays? Any guesses? Brett, you have a guess?
I do. I would say that probably at least 35%.
Give me a number. How many millions?
7 million.
150 million people
That's what
shopped
I mean.
online for the first time globally during the pandemic and during the holidays. Now, those are people that are finding you that had never found you before because they never shopped online before. So know that you have 2 types of customers now. You have an online customer that's usually mission driven and already knows what they want because they've been all over your website. Then you have a customer that still wants to shop in your store and has been shopping in your store. And they're much more experiential. They want to be coddled. They want to be talked to, maybe from 6 feet away, but they still want the attention of a good sales associate. So you got 2 different set of criteria now with your customers. But know that e-commerce is alive and well, and just to be competitive, you have to have an online e-commerce offer. So what is e-commerce? It's the ability to sell your product online through a shopping cart. And there's lots of platforms to do that. And the first way is to turn your website, your own website, into an e-commerce website. And that's by partnering with a platform like Shopify. Shopify is the biggest one. And that you could be on, if you're not online today with a shopping cart, you could be by tomorrow if you went to Shopify. And there's others. There's Wix, there's e-commerce, there's WooCommerce, there's Lightspeed HQ, there's WordPress. There's all sorts of different partners to allow you to start selling with the shopping cart. So, and I'm going to show you something in a minute. So know that you take your own site, but also know that you can put your product on other people's platforms. So you can have your product on Walmart's platform, Etsy's platform, eBay's platform, Amazon's platform, Amazon Marketplace, Facebook Shop, Instagram Shop. So there's bunches of places to put your product on other people's platforms. Now you got to pay them a little bit for that, but of course you do. Everybody's got to make a few dollars. And then multi-channel means beyond the internet, you got to be on social media. You got to be mobile. You got to be mobile enabled. You got to be collecting email addresses. Email is still very important. In fact, it's the only data that you actually own because Facebook's owned by Facebook, Instagram's owned by Instagram, Amazon's owned by him. So the only real data you own is what comes out of your POS, which is incredibly important, and what you get from an email standpoint from your customers. And direct mail works. And for certain customers, for certain demographics, email's incredibly important. And then omni-channel just means taking all these different channels and make sure they work together into an integrated way that delivers a consistent and personalized shopping experience on all channels and devices. And your job is to delight the customer online. And how do you do that? You make it easy. The biggest fallback of e-commerce and doing business online is the checkout process. That's the biggest stumbling block for e-commerce. So I'm telling you, you got to develop or partner with a platform that has a contactless and frictionless checkout procedure. And the easier you make it, the better, because that's what they're going to remember. And that's where shipping comes in, guys. Who do you think they blame when their package comes damaged or late? They don't blame FedEx. They don't blame UPS. They blame the store. The lasting impression of your experience with that customer is how quickly and beautifully the customer receives the package they ordered from you. Now, there's more ways than just shipping, and we'll talk about that for a second too. But I put this chart up here because it was the most requested item from my e-commerce webinar last 2 weeks ago with you guys. This is the chart that shows you the top 5 e-commerce platforms, how much they cost, what their features are, and what other things they're known for. Shopify is the biggest, but it's followed very closely by Facebook Marketplace. You know, Facebook has 2.5 billion users. And, you know, and Amazon certainly no slouch either. And they certainly have set the bar high for folks that want to do business with shipping. And then you have Handmade Etsy, you have Handmade Amazon. These are the 5 platforms. I won't take a lot of time now to take you through them, but take a look at this and then do some Googling. But this is worth its weight in gold right here because I collected all the information for you in one slide. Brad, are we going to send a copy of this out to the folks that are watching right now? The whole slide deck?
I don't know that we're sending out the entire copy, but I do believe this is being recorded for you. And we are putting those on YouTube later for other people to be able to review all the information again.
Perfect.
And I will check on that for you, though.
That's my only point. I want them to be able to go somewhere and review it. So if you put it up on your own site or YouTube, that's fine. So
and by the way,
don't worry about copying this unless you want to take a picture of you know, the slide on your
Mark,
laptop. Yeah.
By the way, if they do respond to the survey afterwards, they most definitely will get a copy of it, just to let you know.
Well, there's incentive to do the survey.
There you go.
Okay, next slide. So what is omni-channel? It's e-commerce website. It's BOPS. You know what BOPS is, guys? Buy online, pick up in store. It is totally taken over the industry. In fact, it's the best way. The best way for you to sell a product to a customer is in your store. But the second best way is for them to buy it online and pick it up in your store. Because 70% of the people that pick a product up in the store buy something else. And with everything being relaxed now, you're going to find more people willing to do that and pick up the product. And then you have you know what the consumer believes the safest way to get a product is? For you to deliver it locally, your own store to deliver it locally. So if you have some folks that could do a 1 mile radius of your store, maybe even a 5 mile radius, customer really likes getting the product delivered directly from your store. And then you have the option of shipping it to them. And that's what we're going to spend some time talking about today is shipping product to customers. So the advantages of BOPS is reduced shipping costs, because know this, someone has to pay for shipping. It's either going to be you or the customer or both of you. And we're going to discuss how you slice and dice that. But it's not free. The 4 big guys are not sending anything to anybody for free. So somehow we got to pay for it. There's reduced risk because you're not looking at damaging the product or losing the product in shipping. And it gives you increased retail traffic, because if there's parking near your store and they came down to get it, they may come in. In fact, most of them want to come in. And again, with the relaxed standards, I think more and more people will want to come in. Other things to consider with BOPs, though, you got to have some place to put all these packages that are waiting to get picked up. And you've got to wrap them and package them. Many independently owned stores have put a conference table up somewhere in the corner of their store and do it right on the floor. So their staffing is still on the floor to help customers, but they can get this stuff prepared for pickup. And then you have stuff that has to be picked up by your carriers. You have stuff that's curbside. You have stuff that's going to be delivered. So it's a whole new piece to complicate the business. Just what you needed is another hat to wear, right? As an independently owned store. Yeah, I'll give you another hat and put that behind your online social media hat. You know, you have to be an expert in everything. Goodness. Remember the 4 A's of service. This is what the customer expects today. The customer expects to be able to get their product from you anytime, any place, any way, and anywhere. They are in control. And they're grieving. Know that people are grieving because of this pandemic. So you have to do all of this with empathy. You have to be kind. You have to listen. You know what Robin Williams says? You have no idea what kind of struggles people are going through when you meet them. You have no clue. But everybody has their own issues. So the best way to do it is be kind, be polite, be ethical, another thing customer expects today is you got to be sustainable. You got to be cognizant of what you're putting in the box as packaging that will go in a landfill. Customer wants you to be sustainable and wants you to buy product from, fair trade and stay away from people using child labor or sweatshops and things like that. You want and use products that are biodegradable or can be put or recycled. So anyway, that has become another part of your quiver is you got to be you got to be sustainable as well. But no, the customer wants it anyway they darn please. And as a competitive retailer or restaurant, you have to have the ability to deliver it any way they want it. And those are the four ways I talked about it a little earlier. You got to continue to manage your customer experience in balance with the supply chain. So what's that mean? It means that during this pandemic, the supply chain has been rattled to its core. Shoot, we had some huge ship caught in the Suez Canal for weeks, and it had a bunch of stuff coming to a bunch of retailers and stores throughout the world stuck there. So you know what happened. We ran out of stuff. You ran out of stuff. So here's a couple hints. Here's a couple ideas. One is you ought to not have all your eggs in one basket. I hope that during this past year you spent some time looking for possible new vendors, because at certain times you may need more than one vendor to get some of your products. So don't keep all your eggs in one basket. Make sure you can get what you sell from different vendors that you might not have used before. Here's another thing. I said you ought to partner with somebody and have an e-commerce site that has a shopping cart. Well, there's certain partners, and Shopify is one of those examples, that have widgets that you can connect into your platform that adds features to your website. And here's a couple that I highly recommend. So we've been talking about inventory and supply chain and getting product. Well, most point of sales, and the point of sale with Shopify has the ability to show the customer your inventory. So your site can say, we have 2 of these left in this size. Well, what's that do for you? It gives you a great sense of urgency, and it gives you ability to do limited time offers. You want one of these? Well, you better buy it now because there's only 2 left. So if you put your transparency of your inventory online, it does a number of things, but it lets the customer know how quickly they may need to buy something from you before it's gone. And that's an important selling feature. So having the inventory available would be great on your website. The other thing we talk about a lot is personalizing the e-commerce scenario, meaning the only way to personalize a sale online is to be able to sell to the customer online just like you do in the store. And how can you do that online? By collecting data with your point of sale system, because then you have their purchase histories. You can refer to what they already bought and why you're recommending what you're recommending to them, because you know their purchasing history, their style, their spending power, what they like, what they don't like. And back in the day, we used the phone. We would pick up the phone and say, sir, we just got a sport coat with your name on it. It's a sport coat that you would love in your wardrobe. And knowing that you already have a hair suede trade and a blue blazer, this is the next coat you need. That's how we did it. And we didn't have a point of sale. We wrote all this stuff down in a book. We had client books for every client. Well, now your point of sale does that for you automatically. So you need to capture data on your customers to personalize the sale. And the other thing you can do is add Tidio to your e-commerce website, TIDIO. You know what that is? Live chat on your e-commerce website. Now, all of a sudden, you're personalized again. The customer can dial in and chat with you about what they want to buy. We just made the purchase live. The other way to make the purchase live is to get the customer on Facebook Live or invite them to a Zoom call and sell them over the video. That's how you make it live today. If they're not coming into the store, you make it live online. And Tidio's live chat. By the way, make the live chat only available when you're open. You don't want to have to be answering live chats at 11 and 2 in the morning, right? So just make it available when you're open and have somebody. So you got to cross-train your staff anyway because you have less people, and they got to learn how to ship stuff and teach one of them how to answer the live chat. So there are things you can do to your website to make it personalized and delight the customer, and that's what you have to be. So with the supply chain, just spread out your risks by finding more ways to find product. And while we're on this, I just want to add this. Pivot. You've all been told about pivoting, and you've all been told to pivot. And I asked myself, how many people know what that means? Here's what it means when it comes to doing business. Pivot means change the way you do business so it's in sync and still relevant to how the customers changed due to the pandemic. And pivoting means not only being able to sell them in a store, but being able to sell them online too. And the other pivot is I want you to think less about selling and more about servicing. So instead of thinking, oh, I got a hard sell, I got to close this sale, I want you thinking about, I got to give this guy enough information, these folks, guy or gal, whatever. Well, I got to give my customer enough information to make a wise decision, purchasing decision. And if you use the mentality that I'm servicing the customer, it's more empathetic. It's putting them first. And that's what everybody wants, is to be put first in line. So you want to be able to do that. You want to be able to do that with your customers. Okay? Tip number 1, let's move to shipping. Tip number 1, create a place to do your shipping and get it organized. I told told Brett this earlier before the webinar started. My wife works for Crate and Barrel, and big box stores like that, they've turned half their stores into fulfillment centers because there's so much ordering happening through corporate that the most efficient way to get that to the customer is for individual stores to ship the product to the customer closest to the customer. That's how people get product to the customer the next day. And the next day after that is they ship from the closest store to where the customer is that ordered it. You think Best Buy ships everything from Minneapolis? Of course not. They ship their product to you from the store that's closest to you. And that's how they do it quickly. So I'm not saying that you have to, take down half your merchandise and move it out of the way and set up a fulfillment center. I'm just saying to keep up with the pace, you ought to have a designated area for shipping. And you need to get a shipping scale. You need to buy a nice, inexpensive shipping scale. And you need all the supplies that it takes to ship things. So you need boxes and sealable bags and bubble wrap and tape and labels and a scale and shoot. The 80-20 rule in retail is that 20% of your inventory produces 80% of your revenue. I'd make sure, first of all, I had that 20% online. And second of all, in the top velocity products, those you sell a boatload of, pre-wrap some of them, pre-package some of them, have them ready to go. I do that at Christmas, by the way, in my stores. I pre-wrap my best products and then put one out that's not wrapped and a pyramid of pre-wrapped ones behind it. And people come, dudes love it. They come in, I'll take a half a dozen of those. I'll take 6 of those. They want them pre-wrapped. So, and when you move into the holidays, shipping becomes absolutely insane. And having pre-wrapped stuff, it makes all the sense in the world. You with me so far? All right, let's start talking about who's going to pay for this and considering all the costs. There's lots of things that happened to you during the pandemic that you didn't plan for. And one of those things is all the PPE. Did you plan on putting plexiglass up throughout your store? Did you plan on buying masks for people that didn't have them? Did you plan on buying all the hand sanitizer and wiping down the store 10 times a day? Did you plan for all this? Probably not. Did you plan for all the shipping that you were going to do? Definitely not. So costs are the supplies, the labor to pick, pack, and ship, shipping insurance, shipping charges, parceling, handling, and taxes. All those things are additional costs. So what happens? What do? Well, you figure out how to deal with free delivery. So I have 3 stats for you that might surprise you, but I'll share them with you. 64% of people believe that your shipping should be free. 67% believe that it should get to their home in 2 days or less. And 74% believe that you should be sustainable and use recyclable products in your shipping and packing so that we're not filling landfills with a bunch of stuff that has to be sent there. So those are big numbers, and Amazon gives people free shipping, but you have to pay them like $12 or $15 as a Prime member a month to get that. So let's talk about how to get the shipping paid for. So there's 3 different ways. One is that you pay and offer free shipping. And the only way for an independent retailer to afford that is probably to build it, at least a portion of it, into their margin. So you've got to actually put it into the price of the goods that you're selling to absorb some of that cost. But you got to do it, and still be competitive. So offer free shipping and absorb the whole entire cost through your maintained margins. 2 would be the customer pays for shipping. You know, you pay, and you offer a calculator and a tiered system, and you have something on your website that allows them to calculate the cost of the shipping. Do you know that one of the bane of existence of e-commerce retailers is abandoned carts? Those are carts that get left on the site with product in them that don't get bought. And the two biggest reasons for abandoned carts are shipping costs that are too high, or they were just competitively shopping you anyway, and they left the product in the cart because they found the product less expensive elsewhere. But your job is to minimize abandoned carts. So free shipping and sharing the shipping costs with the customer is a good way to do that. And by the way, Shopify has an automated, and several of the platforms have an automatic email that it goes out to a person that abandoned a cart. And it says, hey, looks like you left some things here. How about if I give you free shipping? Would you be interested? Hey, how about if I give you 10% off on everything in this cart? Would you be interested? So they have email campaigns that are automated that go to people that abandon carts. And so you have three ways. You pay for the shipping, you split the difference with the customer, or the customer pays for shipping. So let's talk a second about splitting the difference. The best way to split the difference with the customer is to have a goal for a certain dollar amount in the sale before they get free shipping. So here's what you do. You go to your point of sale system and you look up a report. And by the way, learn how to use the reports on your point of sale system. They're so valuable. And one of them is average sale per customer. And look that up and find out what it is that that the common sale is. Let's say your most common sale is $50. You're going to put free shipping at 75 or 100 because you want the customer to reach for a goal and spend more money to get the free shipping. And I saw a meme the other day that said, oh my gosh, I spent $12,000 this year to get free shipping by buying enough product to qualify. So do that. Make it, if your average sales 50, make it 75 for them to get free shipping, or 100. Do what does best. The other thing I want to say real quick is everything you try won't work necessarily. So part of this process of pivoting when you try is when you do pivot and change things is keeping the things that work, but don't continue the things that didn't work. So, if 75 doesn't work or 100 didn't work, drop it to 75. But be flexible. Those that are thriving right now have morphed their businesses to their customer. And what a great exercise if early in this pandemic you didn't reach out to your top 20% customers. By the way, 20% of your customers do 80% of your volume too. So wouldn't it be nice to know what those 20% want from your store? Wouldn't it be nice to know what they wanted and being prepared with that? So know that. And the other piece well, enough said on that. Let's move on. Here are the four big carriers. USPS, the Postal Service. Smaller shipments, look at all the things they do, free priority mail starter kit, click and ship, last mile delivery service, 2 to 8 days. So regular USPS takes 2 to 8 business days, unless you pay exorbitantly to get it there overnight. So UPS is for larger shipments. They have a small business program, small business supply and chain advisors, 1 to 5 days, unless you pay through the nose to get it overnight. FedEx, super fast, smaller product. Packaging Help Hub, FedEx Small Business, 1 to 4 days. And then DHL is international. It's who you reach out to if you have to mail something internationally. 3 to 8 business days. So you probably have a relationship with one of these or more than one of these. I kind of feel like you need to keep all your eggs out of one basket with this too. I think you ought to have the availability of a couple of them at least to get the product to the customer when they expect it. So again, this is a great chart. Fill out the survey, get a copy of it, and the other thing you can do with all this information is like the different carriers and the different places to build your e-commerce. Google it. You can find out pretty much whatever you want to find out on Google or YouTube. So use those resources to your advantage. Who gives free packaging? Well, all of UPS, USPS, UPS, FedEx, they all give you free packaging. You just need to order it or go to your mail center or go to the UPS store or talk to the UPS driver. But you can get free packaging from these carriers. There's also bulk packaging third party. Uline, Value Mayors, Fast Pack. So, I'm a believer, and I tell clients this all the time. Hire a skill set hire a skill set you don't have. So that comes in a couple ways. One would be hire a part-timer that knows social media better than you do and have them do your social media. But in this case, it's, if you're not ready to deal with mailing or packaging or any of this, you may want to consider a third party doing it. And I have another slide that'll tell you about a few third parties that do all your mailing for you. You just give them the product and they take care of it. But you got to have enough margin to be able to pay for that because they don't do it for free. What do you got to know when you're in the shipping business? You got to know the 3 W's. What, weight, and where. So I've taught you the 4 A's, anytime, anywhere, anyplace, anyhow. Here are the 3 W's, and then there's a 4th. What are you shipping? How much does it weigh? And how big is it? And where is it going? So 4 things. Decide who's going to pay. Use the carrier shipping calculators to give you a baseline for shipping costs per package. Use your shipping and make sure you put all your shipping and return policies on your website. You don't want any surprises. So make sure you're thorough in what your policies are when it comes to shipping and return policies. And then consider outsourcing your shipping to companies like Shippo, Pirate Ship, ShipStation. Most of them have a 30-day trial. So try them out, see if it removes the thorn out of your side and you can afford to do it. So know that there are third parties out there that are capable of helping you. Now, there's a difference between weight and dimensional weight. Weight is how heavy. Dimensional weight is how big is it. And what the carriers do is they take the length, width, and height, and they use a factor to figure out the shipping costs. So UPS and FedEx use a factor of 139, and USPS domestic uses a factor of 166. The higher divisor, the lower the rate. But know this, a large, light package costs more to mail than a small, heavy package. That's why if you can get flat package rates and you can package some of your stuff in envelopes, it's much less expensive. Into those bubble envelopes that I know the mail store has and that the that UPS has. So keep that in mind, you know, good ways to ship. And here's something I want to drive home. Make it an opportunity to brand your business. And what I mean by that, I think that when someone receives a package from your store, there ought to be an opening experience or an unpackaging experience. And what do I mean by that? I think the condition of the box when they get it. I think that you ought to use a box that you could put a label on with your logo. And I think you ought to tape the box up with tape with your logo on it, like Amazon does. There's a place called Sticker Mule that sells stickers and tape with your logo on it. So that's a way to brand the box. And your tissue paper ought to have, first of all, it ought to be recycled paper and it ought to have your logo all over it. It's an opportunity to brand the package. And then when you unwrap it and open it, it ought to be beautiful inside. It ought to have a nicely wrapped package that's been, you know, padded with recyclable materials and in great condition. And there ought to be two things in the box along with the product. There ought to be a thank you note. And if you can keep up with that, it ought to be handwritten. And it ought to refer to what they bought or the conversation you had with them when they bought it. The other thing that ought to be in there is a be back coupon, an offer for them to buy something else from your store in the next couple of weeks, a be back coupon. They're very, very, used all over the place. And you can use them in your store too. There's nothing with dropping a little card into the package that invites them to return with some kind of incentive to come back. So include an offer for future purchases. Have any of you seen The Intern? It's a movie with Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway owns her own clothing company, and Robert De Niro is a retired guy that becomes her intern. Well, I'm telling you the story because she receives a package from her own apparel company to her home. And it's all dented, and she opens the box and the stuff's all disheveled and, started to come untaped and all those things. She went berserk. She had a meeting in her warehouse the following morning and went over what she expects with her packaging and shipping her product to the stores. And that's the point of the story, is ship something to yourself and see how it arrives at your house. But make sure it is something the customer will be pleased with, because they are making lasting decisions and opinions about your business based on that package. And no, that's true. First impressions when they open the box. Align your and your customers' value. Minimal packages with eco-friendly, luxurious touches for the high end. Just repeating myself, but I want to make sure it sticks. 4 easy shipping fulfillment strategies. 1, figure out who's paying for the shipping. 2, ship free if possible. 78% of abandoned carts are due to shipping costs. Consider outsourcing your shipping to Shippo, Pirate Ship, or Easy Shipping and ShipStation. They have 30-day free trials. Give them a shot. It may be an answer for you. And then list everything on your website about your shipping and return policies. No surprises. I'll have to pass the baton back to.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. That was great. I'm going to leave the thank you slide up for just a second.
Sure.
while we go over a couple of these questions that came out. First of all, thank you so much. There's a couple things that I've noticed right away that I never even considered. That having them already packed in the store concept for Christmas, that's real. I wonder if you can do that online, send in the same way. It's just a question that came up for me.
Absolutely. Send it to them already wrapped.
That's a grand idea. I
Yeah,
like
it's brilliant.
that.
And
Okay.
the other thing that's brilliant during the holidays is a gift shopping list that highlights maybe 15 of your top products and have gifts under $15, gifts under $25, gifts under 50. In the men's clothing store, we were high end. We had a top coat that had a beaver collar that was 10 grand. So our gift list went all the way up to 10 grand. We had gifts at 10,000 and less. And that was kind of tongue in cheek. But that's a good idea too, a gift list and letting people know what some of your popular price points are. And make a poster of it and put it in the window. That way people from outside can see. Put it on the homepage of your website too.
It's a grand idea. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'd like to address a few of these questions. We'll kind of go through them quickly, just being respectful of everybody's time. But some of these things you kind of answered, and it was asked to go into a little more detail about, for example, how do stores recover shipping costs whenever they have like buy five and get the shipping for free? Is that a built-in cost, or what is that usually, or what do you recommend?
Well, it certainly depends on the size of the store and the margins in the store. And typically, it's being paid for by having enough margin in 5 products to cover the cost of the shipping.
Gotcha. So they are wrapping it up in that as a volume discount, sort of.
Right. It's almost like me saying they have to spend $75. In this case, they're just saying you have to buy 5 instead of 1. But they're using the same idea. They want you to reach a goal.
Okay. Another quick question here. How can you choose a fulfillment partner? Like you were talking about, and you said this repeatedly, a lot of people are very focused on clean energy and clean products, recyclable products, etc. When there's still so much, well, let's face it, it's cheaper packaging out there, and they're still pushing it. Do you know of a way or a resource that people that are watching today could possibly go to search specifically for companies that do that for packing and shipping?
You know, I don't have an answer to that question. I could make one up and sound smart, but I'd rather tell the truth. My dad said, tell the truth, you'll have less to remember. So, you know, you want to be in concert with your primary customer. And you want to make sure that if your customer, let me add something else. Let me add one more thing. These are the 4 C's of expectations from the customer right now: convenience, caution, cause, and community. And the reason I bring that up is cause has become incredibly important to many purchasing people. It started with younger folks, but it is now bled into the whole demographic. It's people are cause driven now, and they want to see that you're cause driven, and they want to see that you're cognizant of what the packaging may do in terms of recycling and whatnot. And you know, you'll just when you do research on vendors, you got to find out where they do business and how they do business and how they staff their manufacturing, and read the backstory. And then certainly, I'm a firm believer of testimonials and talking to other people that have bought from this vendor, or finding out from customers where they've found or been most pleased with the sustainability of the packaging from a certain company. So it's really what I do when I'm not delivering my presentations is I look for things, and now I may start looking, but that is such a widespread question because there's so many different industries that we're talking about when you
Sure.
talk about retailing and product that it's not easy. But I'll tell you one thing: if you try to buy from the USA, you should get fair trade and people that are ethical about how they treat their employees and whatnot. So,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that myself. As local as possible. Working with
China's become a big issue because a lot of us aren't fans of China right now, and a lot of the inexpensive product comes from there. I mean, there's just no way around it. So,
well, cost isn't everything, but
no,
as far as that goes, there's if anybody has any extra questions, I have one last question. If not, please throw it into the chat if you do. Um, and thank you for answering that, by the way. And you're right; it's a very wide question because of the different types of packaging that's available out there. You mentioned that some of these platforms that you can use for shopping carts and
yeah.
for doing this, you said that you have live chat available on most of those. Do you know if any of them allow you to be able to shift who's taking care of that chat? And is it possible to sub that out for somebody else to take notes? Because I know doctors do that a lot. They have people that answer the phones for them, and they just get the message whenever it becomes a
Yeah, that is absolutely possible. Now, I don't have any names off the top of my head to tell you who to contact, but if you go to Tidio, that would start your process. Go to Google Tidio, that'll take you to live chat, and then start looking. And I am absolutely 99% sure there are third parties that'll handle the whole chat piece for you. But that's a little dangerous because they don't have the knowledge of the content and the product that you sell to be able to answer the customer's questions.
good advice. No, that's very good advice to be thinking about. We have one more question that just showed up in the chat too, Mark.
Yeah.
What about using the discount shopping companies that have contracts with big shippers, like memberships?
Well, a lot of people are who's moving to Best Buy's moving to a membership model. Did you read that?
I did
They're
not.
going to have a membership model now that reduces your prices and shipping just like Sam's or Costco or any of those places do.
Wow.
So the question is, could you buy from one of those and then sell at retail? Is that the question?
Well, what about using the shipping companies that have these contracts? I think the question is basically you have your product, and if you're going to use one of these, instead of going there, you're trying to get a discount through volume, perhaps. I hope I understand that question correct.
Well, I'll answer it in this way. There are
Yeah,
buying consortiums, which are a good idea. A buying consortium is where a group of retailers that aren't necessarily in the same town, but share the same product, buy the product together and split the shipment. And what do they get? They get volume discounts and they get free shipping
great. And
from the
yes, that was
vendor,
the question. Mhm.
from the vendor. And then they just split the shipment. Just Google buying groups or buying consortiums.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much. That is amazing. I think that at this moment answers all of the questions there. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we give a few closing remarks?
Who, me?
Yes, sir.
Just that you can tell that I enjoy what I do. This is my purpose in life. I'm going to do it as long as I'm healthy enough to do it. And certainly being virtual has taken some of the wear and tear off all the traveling and everything. But, I look forward to the day I'm back out there, and I look forward to a day that I might meet some of you personally. And one of the things that we do offer, I think Lori is is willing to offer this is virtual one-on-ones where, they can sign up for an hour conversation with me and an advisor about specifics to their store. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but the SBDC is 100% confidential, non-judgmental, and will never charge you for counseling. I mean, we're the best kept secret in the country.
I agree.
So you have that at your fingertips now, and that we're here to help you. That's our charge. Our charge is there's no Ponzi scheme here. I'm not trying to sell you my book. I'm trying to help small businesses survive and thrive. By the way, over 70% of the businesses I've met with in the last several months are ahead of last year, which means they've learned how to pivot.
That's great.
By the way, the only thought I didn't finish with pivoting is pivot one is changing the way you do to be relevant. But pivot two is finding new revenue streams that you can sell in your store that you never sold before. And one of the ways to find those is there might have been some stores that have closed in your town based on the pandemic, not having the wherewithal, the financial wherewithal to weather the storm. In fact, Warren Buffett said, the pandemic has caused us to be able to see who is swimming naked. What he means by that is we found out who was in trouble pre-pandemic, and the pandemic put them out of business. My point here is they probably had categories of products that they sold very well and that customers loved. Someone needs to be selling those product categories in your town, and maybe it should be you. That's pivoting. That's finding new revenue streams. Listen, raise the top line. The easiest way and I'll leave you with this, because I tell it to every client. Know your cash flow break even. And there are several ways to make sure you hit that number. Raise revenues or reduce expenses.
Right? That's great advice, Mark, and good one to end on as well. Are you sure you're not Warren today?
I'd like to be. I probably wouldn't be here.
Right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Marc Willson again. We thank you so much for being a part of today's session. Everybody was there. We thank you for joining us. We thank you, Mark, for such a great presentation again today. Put up on your screen some upcoming things. But before we get there, don't forget the survey, because if you want to get a copy of what today's presentation was about, if you just fill out that survey, we'll know to send you something back from it, okay? Upcoming webinars, don't forget April 29th, Listening, That Thing We Don't Want to Hear About by Lorna Kibbe. And then the 4th, 5th, and 6th, we're back to back with 3 days straight. One is the latest updates on the PPP by Rebecca Schultz. And on the 5th, we're going to have partnership agreements, avoiding legal troubles with Tisha Dodge. And on the 6th, writing effective business messages with Lorna Kibbe, who's back. And if you say you don't have time, remember that's 3 days run back to back. I'm sure all of you can make it back for at least one of those. And on May 11th, getting started with Instagram for your businesses. And on that, I just want to thank a few people. Don't forget to go to our website, SBDC website, which is absolutely full of information for those of you out there that have a business or need help getting a business or want to talk to an advisor. And that business is sbdc.nctc.edu. And as well, we want to thank the NCTC, of course, North Texas Small Business, the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, North Texas SBDC Regional Office, and the North Texas College. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget, check often for those upcoming webinars. And this concludes this particular one. Have a good day.